The next speaker is Alon Chitiat. Alon is from Tel Aviv, is a Tel Aviv-based UX and motion designer at Google, having worked with clients such as Audi, Adidas, 53, and the Museum of the City of New York. He's an adjunct professor at NYU's Interactive Telecommunications Program and Shenkar School of Design and Engineering. Pretty clever, basically. He's weaved together old and new school drawing tools to create entirely new experiences, such as collaborative real-time drawing booths and 3D drawing apps. Would you please give a warm round of applause for Alon Chitiat?
FITC Amsterdam, I'm extremely excited to be here. This is the first FITC Amsterdam that I've ever done. And this talk is called Drawing It Together, and the subtitle is, we're going to choose it together while I'm doing this talk. So right now it's how to collaborate with strangers, and I'm going to offer a few alternatives. And I read through somewhere on social media that a good way to introduce yourself is like Inigo Montoya. So for example, hello, which is a polite introduction. My name is Inigo Montoya, which is stating who you are. You killed my father, so the relationship between you and the audience. Prepare to die, which is building expectation, basically. So I'm going to do the same. So I'm going to do the Spanish accent, or I'm going to do hello. My name is Alon Chitiat. Oh, this is so bad. You chose my talk, so thank you for it. Prepare to draw. Oh, God. So anyway, I saw some of you have sketchbooks, and I'm really happy about it. So feel free to sketch and draw while I'm giving this talk, and to send it to me after. And as I've mentioned, for the past 7 years, I've been researching the topic of using drawing as a form or a medium for interaction design, and I've done it through a couple of art projects that I'm going to show you today. Through my work as a senior UX designer, specifically on Jamboard, so I just moved back from New York, but I was on a Jamboard team, which is a collaborative digital whiteboard, new by Google. And also teaching, so I'm teaching interactive drawing and interactive drawing workshops at NYU and Shenkar. And this multidisciplinary programs of bringing together engineers and designers, and they all work together, this collaborative spirit is something that I want to talk about today. So I'm going to start with a question, and raise your hand. Do you want to draw with me? So I see a few people. I was expecting even less. Thank you. But for those who didn't raise your hand, I completely understand, right? This stranger is standing in front of you, and there's this white canvas, and what if I don't know how to draw? And these are the kind of things that I keep on hearing. So thank you for those who raised your hand, and for those who didn't, and I'm going to try to convince you until the end of this talk. And I want to start by taking you back to when I was 6. So my parents kept this box of drawing from when I was 6. And I was looking through them, and it's kind of an interesting process of a visual feedback of how you were when you were 6, but not only how you looked like, but how you felt like. And that kind of like brought up this old memory about me and my dad sitting at the doctor's office. And I'm sitting there, and I'm this tiny kid, and I'm looking at this old disabled man, and I'm staring right at him. And my dad nudges me and says, he teaches me 2 lessons, right? The first one is, it's not polite to stare at people. And the second one is, you shouldn't talk to strangers. And my dad is a very smart person, but these are the 2 life lessons that I choose to ignore up until this day. So every couple of years, I take myself and I fly somewhere with my sketchbook in order to face that kind of feeling of being a stranger somewhere. And it's becoming harder and harder in the past few years to just detach myself now when I have kids. And actually, this is the first time in 7 years that me and my wife are flying without the kids. Yay! And this is me and my daughter, a very special moment, buying her first Moleskine. And whether it's New York or Amsterdam or India, every time when I'm coming to a new place, I face the same situation of being a complete stranger. And it's hard, right? It's hard talking to strangers. You don't know the language and the culture. But from a very young age, I understood that my superpower is drawing. And every time that I start drawing, something good happens. So in 2008, my wife, she said, she was dancing flamenco, and she said, we're flying to Granada for a few months, and I'm going to dance, and you're going to draw. And we both didn't know Spanish. So what I started doing is I started creating these tiny illustrations that would help me remember words. And this is where I understood the connection for me specifically between language and language, or drawing as an international language. And at night we would go to these local pubs, and people would come with guitars, and people would start dancing. And I would look at those musicians coming in together from different backgrounds and having this mutual language, which wasn't English or Spanish, and I would envy them. And I love drawing musicians when they jam, riff, or improvise together, because this spontaneous conversation through improvisation is something remarkable. When I say I like sketching musicians, it's just a softer word of saying I'm so jealous. Because dancers and actors and musicians, they all have this second language that I never had as a sketcher, right? And I was wondering, how could I experience the same thing which they are experiencing through drawing with other people? So I want to walk you through the stages of interactions that I've gone through. And the first one is just being a complete observer, then stepping into being a participator, a partner, and finally, about group collaboration. And I'm going to start with the observer, and this is where I'm going to offer a new title for my talk, and that's How Not to Get Killed by Sketching People on the Subway. I'm going to explain it soon. But we're going to play a tiny game, and the game is I want to draw you into my world and take you to the New York subway. It's 9:30 in the morning, and everybody's tired, and you're all squeezed into the subway. And you're sitting in front of those ladies, and I want you to think, what are they thinking about? Take a few seconds. So maybe that blonde lady is thinking about an excuse to tell her boss why she's late. And maybe the one next to her is thinking about the fact that she misses her mom and she should call her more often. My favorite one is actually the one in the back, right? I hate when it happens. But I'm sitting there for 45 minutes, and instead of watching my phone, I stare at people. And the process is always me stretching a line between my eyes and the person that I'm drawing. And slowly the whole world starts to disappear. And it's only me and him in the most intimate space where he doesn't even know that I'm there. I like sketching people who wear interesting hats because they tell about who they are and where they're coming from. I love sketching people with glasses or wrinkles, although people don't like them sketched with wrinkles, but wrinkles tell stories. And observation is also a reduction of details, right? In some cases, I would reduce the amount of details and filterize the world as I see it. But in all of those cases, I'm sitting in front of those people, inventing funny stories to them, but they're not looking at the camera or at the sketcher, right? I'm stealing their faces. And that's only because I'm too shy to approach them in the subway. I had only 2 situations where people got really pissed off. And the one that I want to tell you about is me coming back. It's Brooklyn. It's almost midnight. And this guy is sitting at the side of almost in front of me, and I'm sketching him. And he lifts his head, and I could see that he's seeing my face, which was creepy. But suddenly he walks up, and he says, "You were drawing me without permission. I want a drawing back." And I try to be funny. I say, like, you can take a photo of it. But then he says again, you were drawing me without permission. I want that drawing back. That moment, I thought I was going to die. Someone was going to call Lisa and said I was found stabbed with a pencil on the subway. So I ripped out the page and I handed it over to him. And he looked at the page and he said, that's a nice drawing. And he folded it nicely and he put it in his pocket and went down off the subway. And that moment I understood it. He wasn't pissed off about me sketching him, but him not being invited to the experience. So I came back to Jeff, who was studying with me at NYU, at the interactive program, ITP. And I told Jeff the story, and Jeff Ong told me maybe we should start inviting people to invent the stories for you. And this way they would participate. So you would show someone a specific illustration, and you would ask them to improvise that story. And we would record that and create an interactive subway train where you could tune in to one of those stories. So I want to show you a short documentation of the project, and this is Subway Stories.
On the entire time. I mean, the concept was...
Better than a phone conversation
Up
sometimes.
and down, my God, he did.
Chicken. Oh man. I am so excited for fried chicken.
So we got people to collaborate with Subway Stories, and we presented it in a few festivals in Colombia, where people recorded Spanish stories for us, or we got to also show it on the subway. So inside at the MTA Museum, projecting it inside the subway, which was interesting. And we would see people interacting with it for 15 minutes, which was incredible from a perspective of interaction design, but still, they were only participating. They were not actively drawing. To close the story from before, a few months, I don't know, I think a year ago, I'm meeting this guy on a subway, and I see him sketching other people. And I offered him to sketch me while I was sketching him. So we had this interesting interaction where I finally was able to invite him, right? To invite him to the interaction. And totally random, this stranger, we exchanged drawing, and then he went off, and I never saw him again. But that was a moment, again, of understanding how important is it to invite other people into the interaction. So this was Subway Stories, and now we're stepping into the next level of participation, and how to build a platform that would enable people to participate through drawing. And this is a project which started with Rosalie Yu, who also studied with me. Her background was photography, and we 3D scanned ourselves for one of the classes. And when you 3D scan yourself, you get 3 objects. So 2 objects, basically. The first one is a mesh, so it's almost like gray clay. The second one is a texture map. But then when you wrap this one around that one, you get this. And I started to play around with it, brought it to After Effects, and animated it. And this is the creepy face that you get when you see me sketching on a subway, right? Creepy, I know. But then I told Rosalie, what if we replace the texture with an illustrated texture? So it started looking like that. And that was interesting, because finally we got to a point where the canvas was a 3D canvas, and we could illustrate or create self-portraits which were completely 3D. So we created this animated stop-motion animation that was projected at Vimeo's headquarters. And I would animate Rosalie's texture, and she would animate mine. And the result was mesmerizing and interesting, seeing a self-portrait in 3D. But again, the purpose was bringing other people into the process. So this is where we replaced the 2D texture with a live camera feed. So everything that you draw is getting wrapped in real time around the 3D model. This is called Skin Deep Collaborative Self-Portraits. So this was a breakthrough, right? For the first time, I saw people actually participating in the action of drawing. And we got to iterate on the project and show it in a couple of different festivals. Audi also commissioned it once. And we changed a bunch of stuff. The first one was adding a lever, so you could basically roll the paper and also expanding it. So a few people could work at the same time. And we got a timeline by the end of the festival, which looked like this. So basically, by having a huge paper roll, it's almost like watching the full week after. The texture itself is interesting as an output. And watching other people draw together was a fantastic experience. But the outcome, again, like having other people draw your texture and your portraits, and the diversity, you see, it's like one time Rosalie's like blonde, and the other one is like completely, I don't know, the colors and the texture and the mediums change. But my favorite one was this guy who was almost 55, and I'm walking up to him, and he's completely expressive. He's using brushes, and it's all over the place, and I'm walking up to him, and I'm, "Are you an artist?" And this guy's like, "No, I'm an electrical engineer." And like, amazing. But then he stops and he looks at me and he says, "But I used to love drawing when I was 6, and I stopped." And I think this happens to many of the people that I know. They just stop at a certain point. So now we're stepping into the partner. It's no longer me and Rosalie building this platform for other people, but I'm inviting people to actually be equal collaborators with me. And this is my thesis project, Improv Canvas, which is a collaborative platform for 2 sketchers. So I'm actually building this thing to work together, to collaborate together. And it's either on the same location or a remote location. And from a technical perspective, just to simplify it, the platform works as a video stream, which user A has as a camera placed over his canvas. Then another user connecting it, user B, like Skype, when instead of the face, you talk to the hand. And then by layering one image over the other, we get this mutual canvas that 2 people could work together on it. Short video documentation. So through this experience, I understood how drawing is or creates a profound connection between people. I got to collaborate with over 100 people, either same location or remote locations. I want to show you two examples of one which were really meaningful. The first one is me drawing from Brooklyn, New York, with Efrat Hasson, who is a paper artist from Tel Aviv. So paper as a medium is interesting, but I want you to look at this moment where the two things connect, right? And the whole is bigger than the sum of the two parts, which was interesting. The second one is me and the artist Chantel Martin, who was my teacher, my mentor, and a good friend. And she's drawing using my daughter, Romy, back then a baby, as the canvas. So that was pretty insane to see that happening. And now, after understanding how it feels like, and now it's the time where we're stepping it up to a group collaboration. So it's almost like a band of musicians playing together, not only two. And I was fortunate enough through those experiences, past experiences and the research, to get invited to Google. And Google had released this product, which is called Jamboard. And it's a collaborative digital whiteboard available for the web and for mobile. And there's also a physical board. It's free. You all have it as part of G Suite. And this is how it looks like.
This is Jamboard. It's like a whiteboard, except it's way better. Because it lets this team and this team work together. With this guy who lives in France.
Bonjour.
On the same thing at the same time.
C'est fou.
This is how you write and erase. But you can also do this and add some of these. And even turn this into this. And it's got...
So Jamboard is the first time I'm experiencing building a huge product, right, for the millions. And it's no longer this art project, but it's actually designing for users, which you don't know who they are. And especially the ones that I like are the ones who are not artists. So this is for engineers and for product managers, and all those people are afraid of walking to the board. And when I asked people if they want to draw with me, and I came to all those engineers working with me on the product, and I was like, do you want to draw with me? And they say, I can't draw. And I hear that a lot from people. I can't draw, right? Someone told you at a certain point that you can't draw. And the fears which you might encounter are, what if it's not pretty, right? Or you draw better than me, so it's going to be uncomfortable for me. Or I don't like people drawing on the same paper that I'm drawing on. And they're all legit. And I invited the engineers to participate in the same process that I did before. So we designed a prompt, which everyone designed for the next one. So in this case, me and Matteo drawing longing, and then Matteo offered a draw character together. And this is Nick, an engineer. And then we had time travel with Priscilla. And then Priscilla said that this was breakfast, I think. And then War by Eric. So with each and every one of them, I'm experiencing drawing together, and they're experiencing it not from the perspective of code, but from user experience, which was amazing. And I'm designing these digital tools. So for example, how to change a paper, which looks like this when you're talking on a digital platform. But my favorite one was basically building tools that empower users. And the ones that we have are basically one which is replacing text to font and replacing shapes into perfect shapes. But then we also did an integration with something which is called AutoDraw. And AutoDraw is a creative lab experiment done by Dan Motzenbecker and Kyle Phillips from the Creative Lab. And I got to integrate it into Jamboard. And the way it works is basically you draw something, and then it offers pre-made illustrations done by artists that you could replace your drawing with. And it kind of brought a good question about the creativity, and if it kills creativity, or if it's right or wrong. But for me, giving people the power to tell stories without being embarrassed, to use drawing, is an amazing tool. And I think the second problem is when you're dealing with pre-made illustrations, you're also dealing with biases. So this is a guy on Twitter who told us, hey guys, you have 3 male symbols, but only 2 illustrations for a female symbol. Fix it. So we fixed it. And I want to kind of like walk you through the process of making those smart brushes. And this is another team at Google. So before making it, there was a project called QuickDraw, and this is what it means.
Hi, I'm Jonas.
Hi, I'm Henry.
QuickDraw is a game a few of us at Google made. You draw and the computer uses machine learning to guess what you're drawing.
I see square, or suitcase, or canoe. Oh, I know, it's shoe.
It's an experiment that uses some of the same technologies that helps Google Translate recognize your handwriting.
To understand handwriting or drawings, you don't just look at what the person drew, you look at how they actually drew it. Which strokes did they make first? Which direction did they draw them in? You train the computer on millions of characters from hundreds of languages, and over time, it learns whether you wrote look or whether you wrote book.
Training is a big part of how the computer can guess your drawings correctly. As people, it's easy for us to look at these 3 drawings and know they're all cats, but to a computer they're very different. One is just a head, one has a full body, and one is just facial features. To get the computer to understand, you have to show it a lot of cat doodles. And then it starts to see patterns, like that almost all doodles of cats have pointy ears, a small nose, and whiskers.
So now, last subtitle that I'm offering is drawing it together, creating a global language, because this is what it is. QuickDraw, which was all the data that we trained those smart brushes on, is now accessible to everyone. It's open sourced. It's 50 million drawings done by people from all over the globe collaborating together. And I want to show you what happens when you open it up for other artists to use that database. So this is Kyle MacDonald, who's an amazing artist. And he took drawings and started comparing them from different countries. And when you look at cat, no serious changes between Korea or United States. But when we compare a chair, look at the angle between Russia and Brazil. And that's a good question of how we visualize stuff. How we visualize ice cream in Italy, where you would get more ice cream, than in Australia. Another project which is extremely interesting from the perspective of storytelling is Xinyu Yang's Scribbling Speech. Again, an artist taking the database and using it. And the way she uses it is basically using
there is a moon at night.
Speech to trigger it.
2 trees in the field. Some flowers. Far away there's a house. Now I look to the left. I find a butterfly flying around.
So this new medium of storytelling, right? It's all about that by the end of the day. It's about creating stories for me. And what I hope that happened in the past 45 minutes is convincing you to use drawing as part of your medium. And if you're interested to talk more about it, I'll be right here. And I'm excited to talk about drawing more with you. And I hope you all enjoyed this talk. So thank you.